The Deposition is the 8th episode of the 4th season of The Office. This is directed by Julian Farino, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. In general, it's a good episode. I feel like the ending wasn't very satisfying, but I did enjoy it nevertheless. And the intro I liked. Pam is handing Michael post-it notes of people who have called while he's in various meetings, and it turns out that nobody's calling him. He just likes it, so he makes Pam give him random sticky notes with random messages on to make him look busy and popular. Kind of a genius move, and I quite liked it. And I will now be on the lookout for that. If ever I'm in a meeting with somebody higher up, if they're getting post-it notes all of the time, I'm going to question whether they're genuine or not. Not out loud, that would be weird, but in my head. We then have two parts of the narrative, and I'll talk about them in turn. Sometimes with The Office, I'll go through things chronologically, but with this one, it's a bit easier to discuss the scenes in The Office and the scenes outside of The Office. In The Office and the warehouse, we have a ping-pong match between Jim and Daryl, and Kelly is basically trash-talking Pam because her boyfriend is beating Pam's boyfriend, and Pam's not happy with this. So despite the fact that she remarked that Jim is 12 because he plays ping pong and she brings him juice, she wants him to win. So she sets up a table in the conference room and encourages Jim to practice and practice and practice so he can beat Daryl, and other people get involved. Dwight ends up getting involved, but Dwight thinks that he's doing it because Jim wants to get a particular client, and if he wins the ping pong match with that client, he'll sign the client, which is a bit of a stretch, but Dwight believes it, and he joins in, and eventually they go down back to the warehouse, and Dwight finds out that the client is Daryl, and I thought for a second he was going to find out that there was no client, but his response was, he works here. He still thinks that Daryl is trying to be signed on as a client, which I thought was rather amusing. Dwight not quite seeing the truth. And we then have the ping pong match, and ultimately Pam challenges Kelly because Kelly's still going at it. And that's kind of it. It just kind of fizzles out. And I didn't think it was a very satisfying conclusion. Not that I was that interested in it anyway. I don't really care about ping pong. Yes, I liked the interactions between Pam and Kelly. No, I didn't like Kelly's attitude. But I just expected something a little bit more concrete to wrap that part of the narrative up. So the journey I liked, the destination wasn't that interesting. The other part of the episode, which I did enjoy, but also, again, I didn't like the ending, is about the deposition. Jan and Michael are going to this meeting for this unlawful termination lawsuit because Jan thinks she was, well, unlawfully terminated. And I don't know, I was going to say I completely agree with that. I don't. I think to an extent I agree, because I don't think she was giving any warnings. And I don't think anybody should ever be terminated due to poor performance unless they've been given warnings. And from what I know, she wasn't. But that's more so of a UK law thing. You're not just allowed to fire people in the UK because you feel like it. You have to show that you took steps to rectify the problem before firing them. Unless they do something horrendous like steal from the company or cause a lot of problems. But in general, I do think that, based on our UK employment law, I think Jan was unlawfully terminated. I feel like she should have been given more warnings, or any warnings, unless she was, and we're not privy to them, which is fair enough. But either way, we go to this meeting, and Michael is asked a bunch of questions, to which he replies, that's what she said, which is very typical of Michael. And he then kind of messed up when they asked when the relationship began, and it turns out it might have begun before they declared it. But I think this is a bit harsh, because it's not like they're going to go on one date. Let's say they had a traditional dating experience and not the way things developed in the beginning. They can't go on one date and then suddenly declare that they're in a relationship, because it might not work after 2 or 3 dates, and that would be pointless. So when were they expecting them to declare that they were in a relationship? How serious does it have to get before they have to declare that within the company? I don't have an answer to that, but when Michael kind of hinted that it might have been 2 years ago, I think, yeah, maybe that is enough of a stretch of time. However, they pulled out Michael's journal, and I thought initially and I don't know why I thought this, but I thought they were going to read extracts from when Michael was having second thoughts about the relationship. This was quite a few episodes ago now, maybe even the previous season. No, I'm pretty sure it was this season. And I thought they were going to read those quotes out to say, well, actually, Michael doesn't even think that this is a relationship worth pursuing now, and that's where I thought it was going. But actually, they read out an extract about when they were on holiday together and basically how Michael wanted the relationship to be a relationship, but Jan had made it very clear that it wasn't. It was just a holiday thing. They weren't going to pursue it when they got back, and it kind of suggested that that couldn't have been when they were in a relationship because Jan didn't think so. Which again, how do you determine when a relationship goes from dating to see how things are to a confirmed relationship? And obviously that diary mixed things up a bit. And Michael was hurt because Jan had gone behind his back to retrieve this journal, which I don't agree with at all. And then they read out some writing from Jan that suggested that Michael was going to be moved back down to sales because he wasn't good at what he was doing. And that's a lot for Michael to take in. Those are a lot of blows for Michael. And he said something at the end. I didn't write it down, so forgive me if this is not word for word, but it was to the effect, if you expect to get screwed over by your company, you don't expect to get screwed over by your girlfriend. And I think that was a really significant moment for Michael and how he was feeling. And I said pretty much from the beginning, I don't think Jan is right for Michael. I don't think she's good enough for Michael. I think she is using him, and I think he needs to break away from her. I don't think it's going to happen because I think Michael, A, does care about her, and B, doesn't want to be alone. But I don't think she's good for him. And I feel like just every now and then something like this happens and Michael realises it, and then nothing happens. There was the episode where, I can't remember which episode it was, but it was the one where he ran out to the train. And he was basically trying to get onto the train and run away, and Jan went after him. And I genuinely thought that episode was going to be a big turning point. It seemed like things were going to change direction, and he'd realised this wasn't the right relationship. But it didn't. It didn't happen. But then we have something like this that makes me think, well, maybe this is the direction in which we're going. But I don't think it will. I think we'll be back to square one next episode. Michael and Jan dating as they were, not really clear where things are going or even where they currently are. And as much as I don't like Jan as a character, I do like what she brings to the episode, brings to the show rather. And at this moment, I'm keen to see what happens next. Unfortunately, because I Google things about The Office, of course, I've not been able to avoid spoilers because things pop up on YouTube and Instagram and I can't ignore them. But I've not actually seen any spoilers about the future of Jan, which I like. I don't want any spoilers. But for now, I will remain hopeful that the right thing will happen and curious to find out if that's the case. As I said, though, I don't think it was a very satisfying ending. Yes, that quote from Michael about getting screwed over, I did like, but then it just ended with them both in the car going home, and it was just, it just didn't feel complete. Now, maybe that part will carry on to another episode. I doubt it. It doesn't often happen with The Office so far. I've realised it might going forward, but usually most episodes don't carry over from the previous episode. A couple have, but not many. So I'm not expecting it to pick up where it left off, but we'll see. Time will tell. Enough rambling from me. At the end of the day, The Deposition was a good episode of The Office. I enjoyed it, but it's definitely not a personal favourite.